Bhagawan walks into this room filled with instruments, looks at the same harmonium, looks at the same three alphabets and said, "Oh, how great this Swami. Oh, how wonderful this Swami. How sweet his Leela. How amazing this Swami." But then the one who moves all tongues, Mukham karoti vachalam, Pankum lankayate girim, Yatkripatamaham vande Paramananda Madhavam, the Maya Nataka Sutra Dhari that the Swami is. I would try and stretch my hand as furthest as that I can so that I can latch on to his robe. ओ मेरे साई, मुश्किल है जीना तेरे बिना, मुश्किल है जीना तेरे बिना, महबूबे आलम ये दिल लगे ना ओ तेरे बिना, तुझे सलाम सलाम ओ साई मेरे, सोनी लगे जिंदगी तेरे बिना. Dear Swami, loving pranams at your lotus feet. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Sai Ram. This afternoon, when along with Brother Dinesh and Deepu Bhaiya, I was taken for darshan to the Mandir, Swami's residence here, Sathya. We were on the ground floor looking at some of the photographs. By now, I have come to believe that there are no coincidences in life. Coincidence is merely a miracle where Swami chooses to be anonymous. I say this because I noticed a particular photograph which reminded me of a very beautiful experience. It was a photograph of Swami seated with a group of devotees, and one of them was a celebrated music director, Sri Panduranga Dikshit, who hails from Mumbai. And immediately I was reminded about a very beautiful experience which his daughter, Srimati Jyotsna Reddy Garu, shared in the interview which she gave to Radio Sai. Sri Panduranga Dikshit is a music director, so his home was filled with musical instruments, and whenever he would come to visit Swami, he would bring those instruments with him. And one thing a musician would always have, a composer would always have, is a harmonium. Now, every harmonium has a brand name. Paul and Company is a very famous brand name. There are many other brand names. But the harmonium which Sri Panduranga Dikshit used had 3 letters carved on it. The 3 letters were D.S.R. Now, Sri Panduranga Dikshit, being the devotee that he is, used to humorously yet profoundly say, Ki dekho, D.S.R. is written on my harmonium. You know what the expansion of D.S.R. is? D.S.R. is Dikshit Sai Rakshit. Dikshit, the one who is ever protected by Sai. Time rolls on. Bhagwan gets Srimati Jyotsna Reddy Garu married to Sri Raja Reddy Garu. And the Dikshit and the Reddy family unites. Many days later, Bhagwan walks into this room filled with instruments, looks at the same harmonium, looks at the same three alphabets, DSR, and said, Malum hai DSR kya hai? And now is the divine full form coming out. Swami gives, so remember he said Dikshit Sai Rakshit. But Swami's interpretation is, Dekho, DSR. इस तरफ D दीक्षित, उस तरफ R रेड्डी और बीच में S साई. Because the link between Dikshit and Reddy is Sai. All of us, dear brothers and sisters, Bhagawan reminds, are not connected to each other directly. We are connected to each other only through Him, who is a common link. I felt compelled to narrate this experience because this is what Samarpan is really about. To borrow a phrase from Kasturi Garu in this wonderful book, Loving God, he says, while speaking about Bhagwan's glory, he says, the touch of the one in the play of the many. The touch of the one in the play of the many. What Samarpan really is, according to me, is that it is His glory which is expressed through the lives of various people, which is enacted through the lives of various people. The touch of that one, the only one, through the lives of many. The touch of the one in the play of the many. And I think it's very important to remember this. And why do I think it's very important to remember this? If you read Loving God, it's actually an autobiography of Sri Kasturi. But if you actually go through it, and I'll share my experience, you would never remember that it's his autobiography. You'll have to remind yourself that it's an autobiography because it's completely suffused with Swami. Swami, 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 and Swami alone. As we begin today's Samarpan session, my prayer to Bhagawan, not just for this, but all the Samarpan sessions that we may attend, whether they are titled Samarpan or not, all the satsangs that we may attend, my prayer to Bhagawan is this. Like Kasturi sir's autobiography, when you are part of any satsang, the impression that we should be left at the end of that satsang is not, oh, how lucky this person. Oh, how close this person was to Swami. Oh, how great this devotee. Oh, how blessed this person. Instead, the thought which should resonate in our mind, and that is my prayer to Swami, is, oh, how great this Swami. Oh, how wonderful this Swami. How sweet his Leela. How amazing this Swami. Because he is the Lord of Lords, the Master of Masters. The touch of that one, expressed through the lives of many, should only be remembered. My prayer is, by the end of this session, may the speaker be forgotten. May just the subject be remembered. Because speakers are incidental, they come and go. One Swami said, pointing to a speaker, there was a boy who was very reluctant to speak in Bhagwan's presence, and Swami was hell-bent on making him, or heaven-bent on making him speak. And Swami kept on saying this, saying, you must speak, you must speak, you must speak. He said, no Swami, no Swami, no Swami. Swami was standing right near a speaker, and the boy was seated right under that. And inside the bhajan hall, just before the bhajans begin in those days, a flute recital used to begin. The flute recital started. So the moment the flute recital started, Swami looked at the speaker. And then Swami said, remember, the flute recital is inside the hall. The speaker is outside. Are you able to visualize what I'm saying? So visualize Prashant Nilayam Bhajan Hall. Okay. Now the power of Swami's story is, if you actually visualize it, you'll actually be there. And then it'll actually be Samarpan, because it'll be the Samarpan of your mind to that experience. So just visualize this. Let's walk this through together with Swami. So Swami is standing outside the Prashant Nilayam Bhajan Hall, not Sai Kulwant Hall, the Bhajan Hall in Prashant Nilayam. Outside is Swami, inside is the flute recital. The moment the flute recital begins, Swami looks at the speaker, Swami looks at this boy who is very reluctant to speak, and he says very sweetly, Bangaru, see, the sound is coming from the speaker, but the source is inside. Similarly, tomorrow when you speak, the sound will come from you, the speaker, but the source is inside. And that is Samarpan. The speaker needs to be forgotten and only the subject remembered. And the Lord remembered. And then it is Samarpan in the truest sense of the term. And that is my prayer to you, Swami. May we forget the speaker. May we remember only you, who is the subject matter of every speech, every satsang in this cosmos. (1950s). That was the first time when, as far as we know, the family in which I was born had the opportunity to come in touch with Bhagawan. And it happened quite strangely. My grandfather, along with his brothers, were on a business tour somewhere in Andhra. And a gentleman, a business associate, who I think his name was Mr. Subramanya Bua, he happened to have heard about Bhagawan, and he said there's somebody called Sai Baba, and he knows that this family is full of people who are very pious and they respect holy men, and said you possibly would want to meet him, so let's go to this place called Puttaparthi. And he just takes them there. They are on a business tour, but they're just taken to Puttaparthi. They reach there at night, and they are given the most premium accommodation which is available there. No electricity, of course, but the most premium accommodation available there. As the rays of the sun shine in the morning on Puttaparthi, they wake up and find that this premium accommodation in Puttaparthi is the first floor of a cowshed. Because that is all that was available then. They walk into the Mandir, early 1950s, so Prashanti Nilayam must have been new. Bhagawan must have just inaugurated Prashanti Nilayam. Bhagawan calls them for an interview. Now remember, grandfather, 3 of his brothers, plus this business associate. So actually 5 of them are there. But in reality, my grandfather has 4 siblings, so they are totally 5 people. So these are 4 people plus a business associate, and they are meeting Bhagawan for the first time. Swami calls them into the interview room. The first thing that Swami looks at them and says is, you are actually Pancha Pandavas, 5 of you, but only 4 of you are there. Swami easily figured out who the odd man out is. So that gentleman business associate, Swami is saying that you are actually 5 brothers, but only 4 of you. Pancha Pandavas, only 4 of you are there. And they are already astounded. Swami speaks to them. Swami tells them many things. Out of the many things which I remember my grandfather narrating, one of them was this. Swami mentioned a specific date. And he said, on this day, there would be an important event which is related to your business. But don't worry, it will not impact you. That's all that he said. Many years later, on that specific day, our family used to run a textile mill in this place called Thrissur in Kerala in those days. It was named after Lord Rama. Everybody in our family is named after Lord Rama because we have got an ancestral temple where we worship Lord Rama. So it was called the Sitaram Mill. And exactly on the date Bhagawan mentioned, there was a fire accident in the mill. However, for a temporary period, the state government had taken over the mill to run it for a few days. It was during that time that the fire accident happened, and thus we were not affected. So exactly like Bhagawan said, it was exactly on that day that this event happened. And, but nothing happened. Again, they were amazed. Remember the 4 cars which Swami talks about, they were in the chamatkar phase of traveling towards Bhagawan. One seemingly funny but interesting conversation which my grandfather had is, my grandfather is petrified, or was petrified of dogs. In fact, it runs in the family. So much so that when I was born, even before I was taught my name, I was taught that thou shalt fear dogs. He was so scared of dogs that when Swami asked him, is there anything that you want to ask me and believe? So imagine, Swami is asking you, is there anything that you would like to ask? And he says, yes, Swami, I want to ask something. And what is that something? He says, Swami, I'm very scared of dogs. What do I do? So imagine, it was so important for him that he had to ask this question. And very graciously, Swami said, and I believe Swami said this in Tamil, he said, Ippadi nanachikoye, means think of it like this. He says, see, the problem is, you are thinking of it as D.O.G, dog. You should actually think of it as G.O.D, God. So the moment you look at it as God, there is no problem. In fact, there's a common saying in this country, and it's used in different languages. They say that if you see the stone, you don't find the dog. If you find the dog, you don't get the stone. Did you talk about that here? In South India, they talk about that. If you find the stone. But that is from the point of view of you actually chasing away the dog with the stone. But the origin of it is different. There is a statue of a dog. If you look at it as stone, you don't see the dog. If you look at it as dog, you don't see the stone. So the question is, are you looking at it as dog? Are you looking at it as God? Swami is always was prophetic. Nothing which Bhagawan utters is in jest. Would you believe this? Many years later, in fact, a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, an actual dog walked into our ancestral home, and she's at home now. So, as always, Swami was prophetic. We actually have a little dog at home now. So, nothing which Swami says is in jest. And Swami said one more thing in the interview, and we realized later on that it was not in jest. Grandfather asked Swami, he said, Swami, will you please come home? And he did not know. He thought that Swami, like the many other sannyasis, would actually come for Chaturmasya. So you could actually invite Swami for Chaturmasya. But in all guilelessness and sincerity, he said, Swami, please come home. And you must come home to our place in Thrissur. And without a second thought, Swami said, of course, I will come. And that promise was made. And dear brothers and sisters, as we go together on this journey, we'll talk about how Swami made this re-entry. But between this fantastic first connect and the re-entry was a period which I would refer to as the silent mode. In hindsight, I wonder whether it's the silent mode or the Sai-lent mode. Because I think it was actually the silent mode and not the silent mode. Because subtly, Swami was actually, in hindsight, I realized that Swami was there, but hiding in plain sight. I still remember how I was introduced to Bhagawan first. Swami's photographs were there, in fact, in the puja room. A black and white photo, Swami walking on the Chitravati, her hair not as well groomed as we see in this photograph, with the hair flying all around, but still looking ridiculously beautiful. And that's Swami on the Chitravati. He was there, but he was hiding in plain sight. I just didn't notice it for so many years, and I grew up in that ancestral home. My introduction to Swami was very interesting. How did I know that this form is Sri Sathya Sai? This is something I don't think I've shared this anywhere. For some reason, I feel like sharing this today. Joint family, first grandchild, heavily pampered. And I would go to sleep with my parents, and each nucleus family had a room to themselves. But then, I wouldn't go to sleep with my parents. I would want to sleep with my father's elder brother, and that family, because I was a darling for them. And one more attraction is that if I go to his room in those days, he would give me one of those very sweet tablets of calcium sandoz. You remember that one which comes in that, lion wala thing, that white colored and that blue topi, which is got, yeah. So I used to get that calcium sandoz thing. So that is why I would go there and I would listen to stories. My aunt would tell me stories. I would go to sleep. I would wake up in the morning and find that I have descended from the first floor to the ground floor. Okay, and I would create ruckus saying, who brought me from there to here? Now, my mother needed a convenient excuse. She needed to put the blame on somebody whom I can't pick up a fight against. So, in my uncle's room, inside an almirah, there was a photograph of Swami. So, she would point out to this photograph and said, this Baba only picked you up from top and brought you down. And that is how I actually figured out that this beautiful form is actually called Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. I call it silent mode because we think that Swami is not in our life. But Swami, in hindsight, if I look at it, was very much there. One of my biggest regrets is the fact that I have never been able to go for Bal Vikas. Because when I went for Bal Vikas, they said, you're too old for Bal Vikas. I was about 10th standard then. They said, you're too old. But in hindsight, when I look at it, I realized that in my school, I was taught a lot of prayers which are part of Bal Vikas. And many years later, when I did a bit of research, I figured out that the teacher who was teaching us all these prayers in school was a Bal Vikas Guru. And that is why, dear brothers and sisters, I call it a silent mode. Sometimes we say, how can you ever answer the question how long we've been in Swami's fold? We say we've been in Swami's fold for so many years. How do we even know? How do we even know? Because it's a matter of lifetimes. We may not know that name, but then He is always with us. So, that point in time where we think, Swami is not speaking to me, I can't hear from Swami, I don't get Swami's dreams. I think an important point to remember is that possibly it's that silent mode that he's operating, and he works extremely efficiently on silent mode. He gets a lot of his work done on that silent mode. So, those were the early periods just before the re-entry. And then the re-entry. Just before the re-entry, I remember, one day in school, I was flipping through a magazine, and remember, I had forgotten, quote unquote, this form called Sri Sathya Sai. Calcium sand-dose, Sri Sathya Sai carrying me down. Okay, that's all that I remembered, and it had gone out of my memory. It had gone into my subconscious memory. A few days before Swami made the dramatic re-entry into our family, I was flipping through a magazine in school where there was a beautiful photo of Swami standing next to an orange-colored car. And at that moment, the memories came rushing back, and instantly I knew that this was the person who used to carry me down home every night after I got my share of calcium sand-dose. I knew it was Baba, Sathya Sai Baba, and for some reason, very reverentially, I actually felt like, touching the photograph and then, doing pranams. A few days after that, what happens is that somebody turns up to teach all our children at home a karate class. We've got a mini cricket team at home. In fact, I grew up in a family where there are actually 20 people who stay together under one roof. And that is part of a larger family which had 60 people at home. My father tells me that they actually used to ring the bell and all for people to come for lunch, almost like a hostel. Sometimes I wonder why they didn't declare it as a district, but they still called it a house. Now, in this particular house, lots of children, somebody found the opportunity and decided to actually take karate classes. So this gentleman comes, teaches karate for 2 days. The third day he stops coming. But in these 2 days, we realize that this person is actually a member of Sri Sathya Sai Seva Samiti Trishur. He teaches very little karate, talks a lot about Swami, gives a photograph of Swami. In fact, I still remember it's actually not even a proper photograph. It's actually a cardboard cutting from somewhere with Swami, with the Sarvadharma symbol all around. Each one of us got a copy which we, preciously kept with us. And we suddenly started going for bhajans. Still remember the first time I went for bhajans, and I used to wonder why Swami, unlike the many other Shankaracharyas and other saints I have always seen since childhood, never applied vibhuti on his forehead or never had a tilak on his forehead. And very innocently, I asked this question, saying, why is Swami not applying vibhuti? Because in our house, in the evening, if you don't apply vibhuti, you're banished from the house. And here is somebody, Swami, because I thought Swami is a sannyasi, and he does not have vibhuti on his forehead. And I was delighted when somebody told me, hey, he is actually not a sannyasi, he is actually an avatar. And I still remember, dear brothers and sisters, that was a special moment of thrill, because right from my childhood, I was taught to see God in the form of Lord Rama. That is what I was taught to see. And Rama for you was an avatar. And it was thrilling, to say the least, to actually say that an avatar actually exists in the current age. I don't know, it's just grace. From that instant, I knew he was God. Now, didn't have to go through possibly whatever work had to be done was done. I still can't explain it. I still remember that moment when it just clicked into place. They told me Swami is avatar, and the next moment I actually started believing Swami is avatar and Swami is God. That was a very important phase in the re-entry. But then, Swami entered the house with a bang. All this was just a prelude. And let me tell you the story of how he entered the house with a bang. And let me tell you, he entered the house very systematically. What did I say? Systematically. Remember the word systematically, because literally and figuratively, Swami entered the house systematically. And why do I say this? My mother went through a surgery when she was very young. In fact, in Apollo Hospital, Chennai, in those days called Madras. Her uterus had to be removed because there was a complication. I was very young, mother was very young. Many years later, around the time Swami made the re-entry, there was a cyst which had developed in the ovary. My mother grew up in Bombay. In fact, in Sion in Bombay, right next to Sadhana Vidyalaya, those of you are from that area. So she lived in a building there. My grandfather lived there along with, again, a big family there. Now, for my mother, she had a very negative association with the Sai name. Now, this is something which I did not know. I knew this many, many years later. Many years later, in hindsight, my mother told me. What had happened is that in the apartment she stayed, in the building that she stayed, on the ground floor, there was somebody who was Swami's devotee, and this gentleman had gone to Prashantinilayam, and it had so happened that he had passed away in Prashantinilayam. Okay? Now, my mother is a small child. Now, look at it through the eyes of a small child. Somebody goes to a place of worship and dies there. Now, she had a very negative association with, with Puttaparthi, with Prashantinilayam, with Sathya Sai. Okay? Now, the devotee considered it a blessing, saying, oh my God, you're actually passing away in Prashantinilayam. But then, that is not how her child's eyes saw it. And for her, this was ill omen. Anything to do with Sathya Sai is ill omen. Now, naturally, she did not say this at home. It's a joint family where things are decided. It's very centralized. They decide and then you have to follow. So she would not come for bhajans when we started going for bhajans. When my father started taking us every Sunday for bhajans, she would not come for bhajans. She would give all kinds of excuses. She would say, no, I have to take care of my in-laws. She would actually quote Swami and say, Swami says duty is God. Okay? So seva is more important. Hands that help are holy than lips that pray. But she actually did not want anything to do with Swami. That was the reality. And this was the time when the cyst became a bit of a problem. In fact, to put it in layman's terms, they actually did a laparoscopy. And they said that the cyst was the size of an orange. And if you don't do something about it, it will burst and it can be fatal. We had very little time. Now, this was just before we got the opportunity to go and physically visit Swami in Prashantinilayam. This was just before Onam celebrations in Kerala. So I had gone and got selected for singing. I was in school at that time. I think I was in the 9th standard or 10th standard at that point of time. I got selected for singing. And I had an opportunity to sing in Bhagawan's presence. And all of us were supposed to go. The tickets have been booked. My mother actually did not want to come to Prashantinilayam. But only thing is, she felt that I would be disappointed if we don't take the trip. And hence, out of maternal affection, she keeps quiet. Swami knows exactly which levers to work on. So he did exactly that. Now what happens? We go for bhajans one day. I remember a big fight at home, which mother saying, I will not come for bhajans. But my father put his foot down and said, you must come for bhajans. And then she came for bhajans. It was a Trishur Samiti in Kerala. She chose a spot which is the farthest away from Swami's photo. In fact, she had her back against the wall, literally. Because she said, I am not coming anywhere near you, okay? And the farthest, my husband bullied me, and hence I have come. But I'm going to sit far, far behind. And she was sitting there. As the bhajans progressed, dear brothers and sisters, she experienced a terrible stomachache. And she just walked out to the bhajan hall. My father scolded her saying, this is indiscipline, you can't walk out. But she said, I had a terrible pain, I just couldn't sit. The next day, she goes to see the doctor because there was a scan done and there was a laparoscopy which was supposed to be done. Sorry, I said laparoscopy earlier. That was actually a scan. A laparoscopy was supposed to be done. The next day, she goes there. Our family doctors, we know this hospital very well. There's a hospital called Jubilee Mission Hospital in Trishur in Kerala. So we go there and I've gone to school. My father goes along with mother. Mother's taken inside the theater for the laparoscopy. The senior most, there's a junior doctor who is doing this. About half an hour later, the junior doctor walks out. A more senior doctor walks in. After that, the slightly more senior doctor walks out. Even more senior doctor walks in. And it kept on happening till the department head walks in. And now you really panic. I mean, if this is happening, imagine if you're actually sitting outside and this is happening, this is definitely not good news. And my father is worried. And he was desperately waiting for news, very worried, when finally the chief doctor, who happens to be a family friend, walked out and he told my father's name is Sita Raman, but he's called Kannan. He said, Kannan, I don't know what to say. This is unbelievable. The cyst which we saw in the scan is missing. There is only a scar as though it has been freshly operated a day before. The cyst went missing. Completely missing. But this is only half of the story. My mother wakes up and my mother is all tears. And why is my mother all tears? My mother describes her experience. What happens is the anesthetist comes and she's administered general anesthesia before the laparoscopy. And just as the anesthetist is holding her hands and asking her, "Are you worried?" She says, "No, I'm not worried. I've got operated many times since I was young. So this is nothing new for me." She said, "But you seem to be muttering something." He said, "No, I'm just saying Sri Rama Jayam, Sri Rama Jayam, Sri Rama Jayam, the Lord, the name of Lord Rama, which she's accustomed to. She's a great devotee of Lord Hanuman and Rama. So she was saying Sri Rama Jayam, Sri Rama Jayam, Sri Rama Jayam." But what happens is, just before she was administered anesthesia, unknowingly in her lips, the Sri Rama Jayam, Sri Rama Jayam, Sri Rama Jayam, Sri Rama Jayam becomes Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram. This person who dislikes this form starts chanting Om Shri Sai Ram. Suddenly the anesthetist disappears. In the place of the anesthetist is Swami standing. That form which she does not like to see is standing and is holding her hands and is saying, "Bangaru, why fear when I am here?" At that point of time, my mother does not even know that Swami says, "My wife here when I am here." We have not read Sai literature. And that is the story of how very systematically Swami entered the family. That's why I said it was a very systematic entry. And dear brothers and sisters, this is even before we saw Bhagawan for the first time. In fact, 2 days before we took the journey. And my mother was well enough to travel to Prashantinilayam. Go to Prashantinilayam. I still remember my first chance for singing. Interestingly, the bhajans that day happened in a very unusual place. Now, this was not Sai Kulwant Hall. This was 92. So this was the old Prashantinilayam, not the sand, but the concrete. So just for those of you who have not seen it to visualize, outside the, so, very few of us may realize this, or some of us may not realize this. Prashanti Mandir and Sai Kulwant Hall are two separate structures. You enter Sai Kulwant Hall and then you see a bhajan hall. The bhajan hall is Prashanti Mandir and Swami would stay on the first floor in those days. And that hall which you see outside now is the Sai Kulwant Hall. So Sai Kulwant Hall and the roof was not there. It was an open area. And there was, it was concrete flooring. That is how it was in those days. Now, the rest of what I'm going to say you is kind of there almost. Okay, there's a slight modification. Right outside the bhajan hall, there are two levels of the portico. It's called the upper portico and the lower portico. Now, the bhajans happened in the lower portico. Around the place where Swami's Mahasamadhi today is, around that place is where we were sitting, and that is where bhajans happened. And in fact, today you saw Swami go through the, lower portico also in the darshan video that we saw. So we're sitting in the lower portico, bhajans were happening. And the first ever bhajan which I got to sing is a Sarvadharma bhajan, Ramakrishna Prabhutu. It was bhajan number 21. I never thought I'll get an opportunity, but Swami stayed long enough for that bhajan to come. And Swami actually walked out exactly during that bhajan. He started distributing dhotis. Now something interesting happened. He gave dhotis to everybody. He looked at me. He was about to give me the dhoti. Suddenly he took it back. And as though he had forgotten to give me that dhoti, he gave it to everybody else and skipped me. And I was devastated. Everybody's getting it, only I didn't. But what happened is somebody went and reminded him saying, "Swami, this boy did not get Swami." And then he looked at me, "Oh, you didn't get? Ayo pavam," he said. And then he threw this dhoti at me. But there's an interesting prequel to this, not sequel. Since my mother grew up in Bombay as per standard operating procedure, I was born in Bombay. Okay, Bombay is my place of birth. In fact, my mother, me and my younger brother, all three of us were born at the same clinic in Bombay. A few days before my mother delivered me, I was told that she was taking a walk around that Sai and Matunga area, and she was taken for a walk. Her brother had taken for a walk along with my father, and she tripped and she fell down on the platform. Okay, now that is dangerous. Now you just can't go and tell home, and you have a grandfather at home who's a terror. So you just can't tell at home. At that moment, my uncle makes a desperate prayer to Shirdi Sai saying, "Lord, I will bring this baby, I will come to Shirdi and I will offer you a chadar." The chadar that we offer? Okay. That prayer was made. It looks like the prayer worked because I came in proper shape without any major deformities. But the prayer was forgotten. The chadar was never offered. When this happened and when I told this to my mother suddenly remembered saying, just like we forgot to give the chadar, it was as though Swami forgot to give the dhoti. It is actually the connection of the Shirdi and the Sathya Sai where he's saying, you forgot? Oh, I also forgot. It was a beautiful reminder. It is not that the Lord wants the chadar, but I think it's just his beautiful way of reminding that the two Sais are the same. How sweet. And dear brothers and sisters, as you listen to all this, I hope you're focusing not on the speaker, but the Lord who is so sweet. The Lord who is so amazing. The Lord for whom we have very high standards. In Suprapatam we say, Shrutva Tavad Bhuta Charitram Akanda Kirtim. Infinite glory. You have very high standards for him. You have very high expectations from him. But you know what? He still ends up amazing you. And that is what this amazing Lord is. And I hope your eyes are trained, your minds are focused on that Lord who did this beautiful play. One more bit I will add before I move on to my next part, which is actually about my studenthood period. I've broadly tried to divide it into 3 or 4 parts. But the last bit in what I call the re-entry stage. In fact, a couple of points that I will mention. You know, after we went for the first time to Prashanta Nilayam, we came back home, and out of a sudden spurt of devotion, some of us children in the house decided we will do bhajans. In fact, we are lucky that a lot of us, not many of us are trained. A couple of my folks are trained. My brothers are trained. In fact, they performed in Bombay. They go by the name Trichur Brothers. They give concerts. But a lot of us are not trained, but all of us can sing. So we picked up a photograph of Swami. We decided we will do bhajans. Now this was a secret plan where the adults didn't know and only the children knew. We decided that we will choose the day of the bhajan and we'll take lots in front of Swami. So all the days were written and 2 dates were picked up because we said we'll pick up 2 days. The days which we got were Tuesdays and Saturdays. Of course, some people were very devastated because in those days we used to have those WWF, World Wrestling Federation, happening on those days. And the bhajan timing was exactly that. One of my cousin brothers was devastated. But then we said, Swami has already said this, so we must do bhajans. So secretly, we didn't intend it to be a secret, but then the adults, we didn't think it was important to inform the adults. On the first floor of the house, we kept this photo and we started singing bhajans. Around the same time, father and I had the opportunity to go to Prashanta Nilayam once again. And grandfather had given a letter. We were going through some serious problems with respect to our business. So grandfather had given a letter where he said, Lord, let me let me make money, but let me make it dharmically so that, that is not a problem. I can focus on the higher things in life. Okay? Because we're going through some serious problems in terms of business. Now, this was the sum and substance of the letter, as my grandfather narrated to me later. We tried to hand over the letter to Bhagawan. We actually got the second row. But you know what happened? Swami came and took one, not even a U-turn, he took a L-turn and then walked away. So we never got the opportunity to hand over the letter, but we handed over this letter to a relative of ours who was in Prashanta Nilayam for a long time. He used to work in the Sanatana Sarthi office. So this is the 90s. Very aged man. So we requested him saying, can you please take the letter? He was very reluctant, but because we were requesting so many times and he couldn't say no out of a sense of politeness, he said, okay, give me the letter. So next day he takes the letter, he keeps it in the pocket. And all this we know because he wrote a letter to us. So we didn't have mobile phones in those days. He wrote a letter to us describing the entire experience. So what happened is this. He goes for darshan with the letter in the pocket. He forgets that there's a letter in the pocket. Swami comes and Swami says, hey, messenger. And he says, why is Swami calling me messenger? He said, letter in your pocket. He had forgotten about the letter. And Swami said, give. Swami did not even open the letter and Swami started talking about the family. And Swami gave lots of details. You know what he said? One of the things, he said these boys do bhajans on Tuesdays and Saturdays. But he said, but they're making a lot of noise. There is one boy who's coming from the next home and he sings out of tune. Dear brothers and sisters, this is just to say, what we think is a photo is not just a photo. See, that's the larger point. What we think is a photo is not a photo. And after all this, Swami gave a beautiful assurance. He said, ask them not to worry. Tell them that I will take care of their day-to-day affairs. The promise was, I will take care of their day-to-day affairs. Now, what is day-to-day affairs? Dadami etat vritam mama ananyas chintayanto ma yejana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyaham nityabhiyuktanam. I will take care of the day-to-day affairs. But actually speaking, there are a lot of preconditions to satisfy. No, it's a checklist. Ananyas chintayanto ma yejana paryupasate. The Lord in all His mercy ignored all of that and directly said, I will take care of your day-to-day affairs. And dear brothers and sisters, and after that, there are thousands of instances, hundreds of instances where we can talk about where He did exactly just-in-time financing for what we needed. One example I will tell you, just before I got married, we didn't know what to do. I mean, I'd just taken up a new job. We needed a new room at home. We didn't know how we were going to fund the marriage expenses. And suddenly, a check comes from LIC, which is actually the maturity value of a policy, in the name of my father. He did not even know that this policy existed. It was taken because my aunt had taken an LIC agency, and you need a minimum number of cases within the first few days to continue agency. When they ran short of it, they made an investment from their own money in my father's name. And the date was exactly the time, many years later, of my marriage. How can you explain this, dear brothers and sisters? Who else other than the Swami can time it more perfectly? This is one example, but there are many, many examples of exactly He would give you. Swami says money is like your slipper size, shoe size. Too much of it is a problem, too less of it is a problem. Shoe size financing, I call it. He gives exactly that part, exactly what is needed. And that is the promise which He made that day, and He kept all throughout. We actually thought we'll lose our house because there was a bank loan to repay. Many years later, when I gratefully look at it, amongst all the houses which is there in that vicinity, this is the only house which exists. All other houses have ceased to exist. And inside is Swami's photo sitting there saying, I am the master of the house. And the master of the house had made his re-entry. And going back again to this period when it happened, remember we said in a very childlike manner, we had started doing bhajans on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Dear brothers and sisters, one day we suddenly realized a strange substance coming from that photo. And for the first time, we realized Vibhuti had started coming from this photo. We actually were playing in front of that photo through bhajans. That is the mercy of the Lord. When Swami said, I will come home, Swami did come home. He is still at home. Not just this home, but in every home. The question is, do we have the eyes? Do we have the ears? Do we have the senses to see it? That is the only point. Swami is everywhere. Do we experience Him everywhere? So that was the period of the re-entry. And around that time, there was one more thing which happened. There was a major confusion at home because we had a system of, instead of good morning and good evening, grandfather had instituted a very good system where he said that instead of good evening, good morning, good night, you would say Hare Krishna. So we would not say goodbye, we'll say Hare Krishna. So that was a system he introduced it. Quite strange, because we are a family where you should be saying Hare Rama. But we said Hare Krishna for some reason, and that continued for many years. After coming into Bhagwan's fold, grandfather has a dilemma. Should I now abandon Hare Krishna? Should I switch to Jai Sai Ram? Serious dilemma, no? Will the Swami get upset? You never know. It's a question of loyalty now, correct? Do you say Jai Sai Ram, okay, or do you say Hare Krishna? And this dilemma is haunting him and he doesn't know what to do. He's totally troubled and it's not going out of his head. It's buzzing in his head like a bee which refuses to keep silent. And one day a Sanatana Sarathi episode comes. We just started subscribing, and behind Sanatana Sarathi you'll have an excerpt, from Swami's discourse. And that discourse, which came at the time when this bee was buzzing in his head, what did that Sanatana Sarathi discourse say, that extract say? It says, it is only essential that the name of the Lord should be chanted with love. It is only essential that the name of the Lord should be chanted with love. It does not matter whether you say Hare Krishna or Jai Sai Ram. Dear brothers and sisters, just ponder on this. Many years before, Swami gave this discourse. At that moment when the Lord gave his discourse, the Lord knew that on this day, this devotee would have a bee in his head, and the Sanatana Sarathi editor has to pick up exactly this, and that has to be exactly dispatched at that time, and the postman had to exactly deliver it at that time when the bee was buzzing in the head. Can you think of there's so many things which have to, it's impossible. It's impossible if you look at it from the point of view of normal probability understanding. Now, that's why I'm saying coincidence is a miracle where Swami chooses to be anonymous. Here, he was hardly anonymous. I think he was being very, very direct. Very, very direct. When I had this opportunity to narrate this in front of Swami, I know Swami is so, he can really humble you. After I had that opportunity to narrate this once in front of Swami in Trey Vrindavan, Swami's Mandir in Bangalore, Swami got up for a discourse after I had spoken and said, Abbai Cheppyadu, he said, boy said, and Swami is actually quoting the same thing from my speech, quote unquote. It was a beautiful moment. The Lord, the kind of things that he can teach you, there was absolutely no sense of ego in Swami saying, hey, I'm the one who gave this discourse. No, Swami is actually quoting. But this beautiful episode where the Lord said that it does not matter what you chant, okay? You should chant it with love. But the most important point is the fact that he knows every single moment what we are going through. And that was the story of the re-entry. And that re-entry led to a sprouting of a desire that I study in Swami's college. One moment I remember is when a teacher of mine had wanted actually me to join a orchestra group which sings film songs in Malayalam. Now, he felt I had great potential for singing and I must be part of stage performances and give joy to lots of people, is what he thought. He was a very noble intent from his perspective. For some reason, he kept on telling me this and I was very reluctant. This was before I joined Swami's college. I'm narrating this because I think, I don't think I'm capable of thinking this way. It is definitely from there. But I think that was a key moment in my life and that's why I'm sharing this in this journey with Swami. So one day what happened is, and my father and mother were very happy. They also wanted me to go onto the stage and sing and, it's paternal, maternal affection. Your son should be famous, you should sing, you should give joy to people, etc., etc., etc. One day what happened is, they had told me you will not say no. But I was reluctant. I had not said yes, I had not said no. Luckily for me, one day he turns up. The teacher comes to a house when my parents are not there. And he says, I've been following up with you for a long time. I think you must sing for the orchestra. And dear brothers and sisters, I remember it was a very special moment. I don't know what happened. Pretty spontaneously, I told him, I said, sir, don't get me wrong. I think my voice has been created to sing for God. And I don't think I can sing anything else. I don't think I'm capable of these words. I'm not even sure whether I really meant it at that point of time. But then the one who moves all tongues, mukham karoti vachalam, pankum lankayate kirim, yatkripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam, the one who moves every tongue, the one who pulls every string, the Maya Nataka Sutra Dhari that the Swami is, I think he got those words out. You know what Swami does? I think he, it's like, oh, you need grace, you need this. So let me do something, let me make you do this so that I can deposit grace into your account. I think that's how he works. If you see, many times when you need grace, he will give you some work related to the organization, his work. It's like he knows you need it. And then he come, you need this grace, come, and then he will actually give it to you. I think it was one such instance. And I feel that was a beautiful turning point in my journey. And as, Swami's blessings, I joined Bhagwan's college. And then started a beautiful era, which I will now get into, the period of studenthood. One of the first experiences I remember is, a classmate of mine. His name is Rakesh. I mention his name because I've got his permission to mention his name. We were in the same room in the hostel in Brindavan in Whitefield, C6. I still remember this. So some of our brothers here will remember this is actually the A floor, the B floor, and the C floor. Okay. Now Rakesh had to have regular medication because otherwise he would get fits. One day he goes to the bathroom and then doesn't come back for a long time. Boys were all worried. All of us ran in there and found something is wrong. We knocked at the door. He didn't open. We had to break the door open and he was semi-conscious. He had actually got fits. He was carried, promptly taken to the general hospital in Whitefield, and then by Swami's grace, he was fine. A few days later, both of us were sitting in front of Bhagwan, as Bhagwan's will would have it. There's a token system inside the hostel. So, both of us happened to be in the same row, and both of us landed in front of Swami's Jula in Trey Vrindavan. In fact, that photograph was put up some time before. Oh, this photo should stay for some time. I hope this stays on, because this reminds me about another story, and Swami wills, I'll talk about that. But there's a Jula where Swami sits, and right in front of that, both of us were sitting. Swami came, he sat down on the Jula, he bent, he leaned forward and spoke in Tamil. Now, I understand Malayalam, I understand Tamil. My friend Rakesh is from Kerala, he understands, Brother Rakesh is from Kerala, he understands only Malayalam. So he leaned forward and he was actually speaking to Rakesh, but I was posted next to him on duty. Why, I realized later. Swami told him in Tamil. I'll tell you what Swami said and later translate it for you in English, for those of you who don't follow Tamil. Swami said, Ungitta vandu panam illena Swami கிட்ட சொல்லக்கூடாதா Swami வந்து மருந்து வாங்கி கொடுக்க மாட்டேனா. If you don't have money, should you not have told Swami, would Swami not have got you the medicines? And in that instant, I knew what had gone wrong. He had not received money from home, he had not bought medicines, he had not had medicines, that's why he got the fit. Now, I couldn't react at that point of time. I went out of, after Trey Vrindavan, we came out of this Trey session. We were in the presence of Swami's Mandir. At the earliest opportunity, I went up to him, I caught hold of him and said, from now on, don't call me brother. Don't call anybody brother, because you lied to us. You hid things from us. You did not have money. You didn't buy medicine. That's why you got fits. And then Brother Rakesh looked at me as though I was Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, saying, brother, as of this morning when I last checked, you were not omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. How did this happen? I mean, what did they feed you in the hostel? And then I told him, saying, brother, I did not say this is exactly what Swami said. Isn't this true? And he admitted, saying this is exactly true. So, it's one thing to read about omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, and it's one thing to actually see it in action. And that is one of the first experiences I got to see. The second one was even more interesting, even more funny. There was another boy who had come along with me from Thrissur. In fact, we studied 11th and 12th together, and I will not name this brother, given the nature of the experience that I'm going to narrate. So, he did not want to join Swami's college. In fact, in the application form, in fact, sometime before, Brother Siddharth was talking about how because he had filled up something wrong in the application form, somebody said he will not be given admission. Brother, here was a case where this boy had dirtily filled up his application form, struck off things and made it messy because his objective was the application should get rejected. His application got accepted. He was called for the test. Just before he had to go for the exam, he met with an accident. A matter of sorrow, but he rejoiced because he had a fracture and hence he was sure that he can't go to Prashant Nilayam for writing the exam. He was taken to the doctor. The doctor examined and said, you've got a fracture. It's very bad, but I think it's okay to travel. Still remember, he comes, so nothing is working for him. He comes, I still remember, he used to come in a cycle rickshaw. The cycle rickshaws which would be there in Mandir in those days. From there, he would come, the exams would happen in the school building. We have the Ganesha there. Now I think he looks pink. He is pink and yellow and pink now. The pink cute Ganesha opposite to the college, where the school is. So that's why we went and wrote the exam. In the exam, multiple choice exam. First of all, he did not study. Second, he made sure that the answers he knew also, he marked it wrong. And it's multiple choice. So it is wrong. So it's either right or wrong. You get 1 or 0. He passed the exam. He was called for the interview. He spoke very arrogantly in the interview. He went around Ganesha 108 times in Prashant Nilayam praying that he should not get admission. Normally people do, this around Ganesha. But Ganesha must have got instructions from High Command to keep his big ears closed. So that prayer didn't work. And actually what happened is he got admission and he joined the college. And imagine somebody who joins the college like this, there's a sense of rebellion which is boiling inside him. So what he did is, he wanted to, somehow show his angst at Swami. So what he did is, he had got into, certain habits which were not beneficial for him. He used to smoke, even when he was in school. So he went, this is when Bhagawan was there in 1994. Bhagawan was there in Vrindavan. he walked outside the campus, which isn't allowed. It's a strict no-no. You can be expelled from the hostel. He walks outside the campus, goes out, smokes, comes back. And in the evening, in the dining hall, which is also our prayer hall, and also a study room for combined studies in Whitefield in Vrindavan hostel. So 3 of us are sitting next to Bhagawan's photo, and with a lot of, arrogance and jubilant pride, he says, you talk about your hostel and discipline. I went outside and smoked today. Okay? And I got very worried for him. I said, brother, don't do this. You'll get kicked out of the hostel. Okay? He said, nobody will know. No teacher will know, warden will not know. For some reason, I felt like telling him, saying, teacher, warden will not know, Swami will know. So he said, no, how will Swami know? There are 250 boys in the hostel. How will Swami know? So I said, brother, forget all that. Smoking is not good for you. I think you should stop smoking. And then he threw a challenge, not at me, but at Bhagawan. He said, let Swami ask me to stop smoking, I will stop smoking. The conversation ended there. Couple of days later, we were inside Sri Vrindavan again. So there were 3 of us who were part of this conversation. Interestingly, 3 of us were in the same line, inside the hostel. At 3 different points in the line, so we did not know. So that's why I'm telling you, there's nothing called coincidence. Our line got picked up. We were inside the mandir. We were very close to Swami's, the place where Swami sat, Jula. Now that day what happened is after bhajan, Swami they spoke to us in 3, he woke up, he got up, and then after that it's of course the time to give arti. And a boy is given a chance, one of the students is given a chance to actually offer the arti. Normally what Bhagawan does is, there's nothing normal, you can't say Bhagawan does this only, but I'm saying, okay, out of his sheer mercy, compassion, one standard operating procedure that he followed is, he would light the arti and he would give the matchbox to the same boy, who is showing arti, because it's a wonderful, memento that you can keep with yourself. Yeah. So normally that's what Swami would do. But that day, Swami deviated from the standard operating procedure. Swami gets up, he lights the arti, he turns around, looks at my friend, who? That one, the one who was smoking, throws the matchbox. Naturally, somebody throws a matchbox at you, you catch it. The moment he caught it, Swami looked at him, and with a universe bewitching smile, Swami told him, hey boy, I've given you matchbox, but don't smoke. This was exactly the reaction of the audience there. Except for 3 people in the audience. For us it was dug. Imagine, he had challenged Swami. The most beautiful thing is everybody, including the warden, laughed. Because they thought Swami was joking. Swami did not give him away. But the point is, the message was delivered. And I asked him, I looked at him and said, now what? He had absolutely nothing to say. He said, Om Shri Sai Ram. Absolutely nothing to say. He's still in touch. Still in touch, part of Swami's fold. How things can happen, how the Lord can turn things around. He's a philosopher's stone. In fact, sometimes I think, Swami, how does it matter, Swami? How does it matter what I am, Swami? What prarabdha karma you're talking about? You are the philosopher's stone, Swami. You touch me, I will become gold. How does it matter whether I'm pure or impure? I am the most impure, Swami. But I will still come to you because you are the philosopher's stone, Swami. You touch me, I will become Bangaru, Swami. When this Lord is there, dear brothers and sisters, what do we have to worry? Do we have to even worry about whether we'll make spiritual progress or not? If we, dear brothers and sisters, can't achieve the highest goal in life, nobody can, because we have seen the Lord. We have known His name, and we are in His presence currently. We still are with Him. So that is the Lord, that beautiful facet I saw. If the first one was the mother, the second one was the father. The one dose of discipline that he gave to ensure that this brother is firmly established in his thought and his consciousness. Let me narrate one more experience, and again a very amusing one. But, again it reiterates the point that Swami knows everything, even now, including what we are thinking now. One of my classmates decided to give a letter to Swami. He'd written a letter, kept it in front of the altar in the cupboard in the hostel, and he had taken it for darshan. He took it for darshan that day. Swami didn't pick up the letter. Took it next day, didn't pick up the letter. Third day, didn't pick up the letter. It went on for days together. Now, I know law of probability does not work with Swami, but in those days, 3-4 darshans you take, Swami would take your letter. But for him, it was not happening. After some time, Swami was making it very obvious. Swami would take the letter from the boy on the left, the boy on the right, but skip him. After some time, Swami started not coming to the row where he was sitting. So much so that boy started avoiding sitting with him, because you sit next to this fellow, Swami will not come there. So you better go and sit somewhere else. Okay? So he was literally in God-forsaken zone, this brother. He didn't know what to do. Now he felt very bad, and suddenly in a moment of reflection, he felt that if Bhagawan is not picking up this letter, there must be something wrong with this letter. And thus he did something which we generally do not do. Once you write a letter to Swami and then seal the envelope, do you generally open it? Generally we don't. It's offered to Swami. But these were desperate circumstances, and desperate circumstances require desperate measures. So he decided to open the envelope, and he picked out the letter written to Swami. And lo and behold, dear brothers and sisters, what came out of the envelope? It was not the letter written to Swami. It was his accountancy answer paper. So what had actually happened is, he had written the letter, placed it in front of Swami's altar, prayed to Swami, and in all piety, closing his side, he picked up the letter. But instead of the letter, he had picked up the accountancy answer paper. And that is what he was taking for darshan daily. And that day, he put the correct letter in, the correct paper in, and he walks up. Swami walks up to him, picks up the letter and goes. Amazing are the ways of the Lord. See, now tell me, when you were listening to this particular experience, where were you? Were you sitting in Dharmakshetra, or were you sitting in Vrindavan? Was that boy giving the letter? Were you giving the letter? You were giving the letter. You were watching it happen to you. And that's the power of his story. That is Samarpan. Swami says, in fact, in a discourse in 1960, Bhagawan says that the only purpose of all the activities done as part of the Sri Sathya Sai Seva organization is Chitta Shuddhi. Swami says that's the only purpose. And Swami says mind is like a handkerchief. It gets dirty. What do? You take it to the dhobi. But for this handkerchief of the mind, who is the dhobi? Swami says, I am the dhobi. Bring it to me. That's why every week, Thursday, Sunday, Samiti Bhajan, because you can't give your clothes for washing once in a month, right? So that is why Samarpan is literally Samarpan of the mind. Actually give your mind and say, please clean it. I've acquired a lot of dirt in this week. Each satsang, how he cleanses, just the thought of him, how it cleanses it. Because your mind, currently our minds are full of Swami. There's absolutely nothing. So, the enchanting story of the Lord. Let me get to the other, one more part of the, a critical part of my experience there, but I wanted to start singing in Bhagawan's presence. In those days, it was customary to get permission physically from Swami. Swami would have to tell you, okay, you can lead the bhajans. And it's very tricky. You go and ask him, Swami, can I sing bhajans? He will tell you, sing bhajans. But he would mean you can follow bhajans. No. Swami, I want to lead Swami. So you have to be very specific. Swami, may I lead the bhajan, Swami? Now, I made this attempt many times. It just didn't work for me. Swami would avoid me. Once I got up, he said, what happened? Are you going to get married? Is this your wedding invitation? Next time, he said, what, do you want to interview? And he asked one of my classmates to give him an interview. I was not very fascinated with that idea. And this went on for many days. And somehow it didn't seem to be working. And at that point of time, in a discourse which he gave inside the Mandir, Bhagawan sang a Telugu poem which begins with the line, Adigagale, O Manasa, O mind, do not ask. If you ask, it will be ignored. If you do not ask, it will be granted. Now, remember with Swami and his teachings, it is very person specific. Now, just because I am narrating this experience, you should not say, I should stop asking. That is between Swami and you. Because Swami is direct connect. Now, I'm just narrating the larger point that I'm trying to make is how Swami guides each one of us. Now, that is for me. Now, the message which I took away is, so maybe I should stop asking. I stopped asking. The next day, Swami asks, saying, Kotta pillal ekkada, where are the new boys? I want to hear them sing. And before I knew, brothers and sisters, I was actually part of the bhajan group. And that was a very, very important. I had given letters. Swami wouldn't take the letter. I felt that path was not my path at that stage of my life. I'm sharing this because it has got a connection to a later episode, which I will share after this. I started singing bhajans. Many years later, I suddenly went into a period which is called the cold storage period. The cold storage period is where suddenly Swami is not looking at you, you're not allowed to sing, your name is not there in the bhajan list. Why? Nobody tells you. Nobody will explain. You are in cold storage, you are abandoned. No chance to sing. Very painful period. Extremely painful period. And that was the time when lot of things became very, very meaningful to me. In fact, a bhajan, which is very dear to me, suddenly became very, very meaningful to me because I suddenly realized I was right in the presence of that Bhagawan. I had come from a family where I was pampered. I left all that, I came here thinking, Swami, you are there to shower all that affection that I'd loved, that my loved ones were showering there. And now, Swami, you're not even looking at me. And then I used to feel that that external Swami is not for me. My Swami is the one internally. A lot of people told me that you're very selfish if you ask for Swami's external attention. And then I said, okay, Swami, outside there is only one Swami, but inside everybody has got one Swami. And that Swami is very special for me. And that is when one bhajan became very, very special for me. And many days I would stand on the hostel terrace, sing this bhajan and then cry. Antaranga Sai, Anatanata Sai, Antaranga Sai, Anatanata Sai, Dina Bandhu Sai, Karuna Sindhu Sai, Dina Bandhu Sai, Karuna Sindhu Sai, Antaranga Sai, Anatanata Sai, Rama Krishna Shiva Shakti, Prema Rupa Sai, Rama Krishna Shiva Shakti, Prema Rupa Sai, Yugavatar Baba Shri Sathya Sai, Yugavatar Baba Shri Sathya Sai, Antaranga Sai, Anatanatha Sai. Whenever I would sing this bhajan, it's easy to say, Swami, you are inside, and ignore that beautiful Swami when he's outside. But at some point of time, you feel very bad. He's all around you. Like they say, water, water, all around, but not a drop to drink. The Lord all around, but not a drop to drink. So when I would sing this bhajan in the last line, Yugavatar Baba Shri Sathya Sai, in my mind, I would try and stretch my hand as furthest as that I can so that I can latch on to his robe. And that is why I would sing, Yugavatar Baba. That was every inch of me straining to try and grasp the hem of his robe, but it was beyond reach. And I would surrender to the fact that, okay, Swami, the Swami for me is the Swami within. I don't deserve the Swami outside. Cold storage. And as I'm saying this, I'm sure all of us have experiences in different parts of our life. The touch of the one and the play of the many, like I said. It's the play of the many, but you will still feel the touch of that one. I was out of action. Nobody would tell me why. Somebody came and said, brother, I'll tell you in confidence. The real reason why you're not able to sing is apparently Swami has said something about your voice, and that is why you are out. Now, if you have to be back in the group, Swami will have to speak to you. Now, that was very difficult. The problem is Swami is not speaking. I mean, it is not that I was not one of those, we have these interesting hostel terminologies called form boys. It was as though only those people had forms and everybody else were formless. Swami would see only them. I wasn't a form boy. Swami would not look at me. Swami would not speak to me. So what do I really do? What happened is it was the global Akhanda Bhajan time, Prashanti Mandir. I was sitting somewhere in the middle of the hall because I had absolutely no chance to sing. Swami was sitting on the throne, and the first session of bhajans, 1 hour was over. And after that 1 hour concluded, Swami got off his throne and was walking towards Purnachandra. And Swami was staying in Purnachandra in those days. At that point of time, one of the teachers who was responsible for the bhajan group, I saw him turn around and call me, beckon me. And I was very happy. I couldn't believe this. And I immediately got up and started walking towards the front rows because I thought I was actually being asked to sing. In hindsight, dear brothers and sisters, I got to know that I was not called. It was actually some other person who had called. I had thought that I was called, and I started walking. And this teacher thought, why disappoint him? Anyway, Swami is not on the chair. And that is how I went forward. And he asked me, what bhajan do you want to sing? My answer was ready because this was a desperate situation and I felt only one bhajan suited that situation. I've never sung that bhajan again. I've sung that bhajan only once. And I think I sang my heart out, and I've never been able to sing the bhajan like I sang the bhajan that day. Because the bhajan, dear brothers and sisters, I sang that day was, O Bhagawan, Araj Suno mere Sai Bhagwan. O Bhagawan, Araj Suno mere Sai Bhagwan. Partipuri ke tum ho data, Vrindavan ke tum ho data, सब भक्तों के मन को बाता, पार उतारो नैया मोरी, साई घनश्यामा, साई घनश्यामा, ओ मेरे साई घनश्यामा, साई घनश्यामा, ओ भगवान, O Bhagawan, Araj Suno mere Sai Bhagwan. As I sang these lines, if you visualize, dear brothers and sisters, Swami was walking towards Purnachandra in the Sai Kulwant hall. Can you visualize that? Swami was actually walking. And in my mind's eye, I couldn't see him because I was inside the bhajan hall. I'm visualizing Swami walking, and despite his thick stock of hair, I'm hoping it still goes into his hair. This plea of mine, this do or die situation. But this is unauthorized singing. I had not got the Lord's permission to sing, so I knew that this was this one bhajan. However, it was only a question of who would bell the cat, because somebody had taken the risk to give me a bhajan. Other teachers started giving me bhajans. And the next day morning of Akhanda Bhajan, I started singing, but Bhagawan was not seated on the chair. Now, Bhagawan comes in and sees me singing, the teacher is caught, I am caught. So what happened is this. I just started singing a bhajan. Exactly when I started singing the bhajan, Bhagawan walks out of the interview room. Now, dear brothers and sisters, what you see here is the interview room chair. So Bhagawan walks out of the interview room in Prashanti Nilayam. Swami's car is parked outside because Swami was apparently going to the college auditorium for a drama rehearsal that was going on. He was going to watch the drama rehearsal. So Swami's car was parked outside, in Sai Kulwant hall. And it was like Swami made it very obvious. He came out. The moment Swami steps out, I have started the first line. Now I can't stop because I've already started singing. What Swami does is, he's actually clearly, Swami comes out and he's walking towards the left where the car is, but he walks 2 steps and there's a sudden break that he does a U-turn, walks straight inside the bhajan hall. I'm already singing, I'm caught. He sits on the chair. Now I have no choice but to sing and get caught. But the bhajan I was singing at that point of time was quite appropriately the Lord's will. And look at how the Master of Master draws the script. Sankataharana Shri Sai Ramana, Sankataharana Shri Sai Ramana, पंकज चरणा नमो नमो, पंकज चरणा नमो नमो, वेदोद्धरणा वेंकटरमण लक्ष्मीनारायण नमोस्तुते, नमो 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 नमो, पंकज चरणा नमो नमो, पंकज चरणा नमो नमो. Swami sat there, and it was as though he was very delighted with the bhajan. He was closing his eyes, he was doing this, and I'm wondering, Swami, are you actually responding to my bhajan? Because I don't think I was singing it very well. Swami gets up after the bhajan. Swami opens his eyes and a beautiful smile, a sight for the lords to see, for the gods to see. Immediately after the bhajan, he gets up and walks away, either to tell you, I came only for your bhajan. The mercy of the Lord. Again, dear brothers and sisters, when you listen to this line, and that's my fear, do not allow it to become autobiographical. This is not about me. This is about the compassion of the Lord. This is what He does. The mercy, the compassion, ahetuka daya sintu, the ocean of limitless, costless compassion. Swami walks towards the car, but I'm still thinking, look at my monkey mind. Oh, Swami came, Swami looked at me, I'm caught. I will not get chance. Evening I come, my name is there in the top of the list. I'm surprised. Why? Because then one of my student brothers come and tell me, saying, BRC, you know what happened? Swami actually came and Swami spoke about you. Now, what did Swami speak about me? Now, there's a backstory to this. When I was going through the struggle, somebody came and told me, Swami is not allowing you to sing. What are you doing about it? I said, I'm praying. And there was a teacher who told me. I said, sir, I'm praying. Have you written a letter to Swami? I said, no, because you know my history, right? Letters never worked for me. For me, it didn't work. My path was different. That's how I had understood it. Praying worked, letter didn't work. So I said, no, sir. He said, there's no use, you have to give a letter. Now, as it is, I was going through a crisis in terms of my singing, okay? Now I have a spiritual crisis also because my foundations are shaken. I had understood that that is not my path. But here he says there's no use. But what does Swami say? Swami goes there, and for some reason, I've heard that Swami would call me parrot voice because I think I had a very squeaky voice. So Swami goes there and says, he speaks to a couple of boys. He's taking them to task because while bhajans were in progress, he had noticed that they were checking the shruti for the next bhajan and they were putting the ear to the harmonium. Swami noticed that apparently, and Swami was taking them to task. And then Swami says, Telisa, parrot voice, letter rasyadu. He said, this parrot voice, that boy, he wrote a letter to me. And Swami narrates the content of the letter I have written. He says that in this letter he's written, Swami, I am not getting chance to sing, Swami. Please give me chance to sing, Swami. Swami, even if you don't give me harmonium, no problem, Swami. I will sing without harmonium. Swami is saying this. Swami is saying he's written all this. See, he's willing to sing without harmonium. You have harmonium and you're doing this. And that is how my re-entry happened, because the Lord had to speak about me. But dear brothers and sisters, now let me tell you, I never wrote a letter. I only prayed. But Swami said, I wrote a letter, thereby showing me praying is equal to writing a letter. I was re-established in my faith. You're clapping for this. Now listen to the second part of the Lord's amazing Leela. The teacher who told me to write the letter was seated in the audience in the auditorium, and Swami said, parrot voice letter rasyadu. He thought I wrote the letter. He was confirmed in his faith and I was confirmed in my faith. This is the beauty of the Lord. Again, dear brothers and sisters, this is not about me. This is actually about the power of prayer. The Lord listens. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says that the Lord listens to everything. He listens to even the footfall of an ant. As an ant whose footfall has been listened to, I can tell you confidently, He listens to the footfall of an ant. In this very divine presence, I think somewhere here, our beloved teacher, Sri Sanjay Sahani, while speaking in front of Bhagawan in Dharmakshetra, I think, said this. He said, prayer is man's only strength and God's only weakness. And the Lord had to admit that it is his weakness. The Lord, who is all powerful, admitted that it is his own weakness. So I think, here, people who are here should never forget the power of prayer. It can accomplish anything. And that is the lesson that I learned, that the Lord actually will listen to a prayer which comes from the heart, because he resides in the heart. Even if it doesn't come from the heart, he listens to it. I think he makes a big fuss of it about in terms of saying that you must be sincere. The Lord's name is called Bhava Prasu. Bhava Prasu means the one which gives birth to Bhava. You say, with Bhavam you should chant the name of the Lord. That's right. But that's the utopian state, the ultimate state. That's like saying that I will actually, once I learn swimming, I will get into water. I mean, how is that possible? But the Lord's name is Bhava Prasu. Chant his name and the Bhavam happens automatically. It automatically comes. He ensures that he gives you the wherewithal to melt him. I know we are running short of time. I think we're already out of time, brother, right? Okay. So 5 minutes. So what I will do is, I will get to the last part of what I have to share. In 5 minutes, whatever time I have, let me try and cover one experience, which was a very important lesson, which continues to guide me in my life. And it started with a dream. And the most beautiful thing about Swami, brother was asking me, are you sending me slides? Are you sending me photographs? I said, I don't have any. You know why, brother? He's already planned the photograph that ought to be there. Because the picture which came in my dream was this photograph. That's why I told you it's amazing. I didn't bring these photos. These photos were picked up by these brothers. We think we plan. We think we prepare. Everything works as per his plan. So what do I see in the dream? In the dream, I'm in this interview room in Prashantanilayam. Swami is seated on this chair. I go and sit in front of him, and only I am there. Swami asks me, where do you work? I said, Swami, I work for a bank. And very cutely, Swami says, bank means what you do. You write accounts and all that. And Swami is actually doing this. Okay? He says, no, Swami. And I was a branch manager in those days. I said, Swami, I'm a branch manager. And very proudly he says, oh, you're a manager. Oh, very good, very good. And then he switches titles. Remember, he refers to the bank, my office, my work. Immediately he switches, and then he says, you sing, right? I said, Swami, yes, I sing. What do you want to sing? What do you want to sing? And I suddenly start singing a song, which is not really one of my favorite songs, etc. But in that dream, I start singing a song which we would commonly sing in front of Bhagawan. And the moment I start singing that song, Swami asks me which song, I tell him the song, and you know what happens? I see something amazing. Swami gets off that chair, he squats on the ground, like all of us are sitting. He suddenly pulls in a harmonium, I don't know from where, and he actually plays the lead for the song. In my dream, I'm hearing the lead. The lead was, na 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 na. It was crystal clear. It was an HD quality dream, So, na 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 na, and I start singing, Teri hai zameen, tera asmaan, tu bada mehban, tu bakshish kar, sabhi ka hai tu, sabhi tere, khuda mere tu bakshish kar. Not really. Brothers, you'll remember this. We have sung it before Swami many times. Not one of my favorites. I had no clue why I started singing that song. Now, Swami was just playing the harmonium. Swami is actually playing the harmonium, okay, accompanying me on the harmonium. And suddenly what happens is, in the dream, I skip the first stanza. This is the zero stanza. The first stanza is, Teri marzi se hai malik, hum is duniya mein aaye hai. But I skip that stanza, and I directly go to the second stanza, in the dream. And the moment, dear brothers and sisters, I start singing the second stanza, Swami, who till then was only playing the harmonium, starts singing along with me and starts swaying from side to side as though he was underlining those lines. And what were those lines? Tu chahe to hame mare, tu chahe to hame rakhe, तेरे ही हाथ से साई हमारे भाग है लिखे ये जिस्म और जान तेरे हैं, ये सब अरमान तेरे हैं, तेरी है ज़मीन। तू चाहे तो हमें मारे, तू चाहे तो हमें रखे. To this audience, I don't have to explain that meaning to you. Anywhere in India, I would have to do that. मारे या रखे, तेरे हाथ से साए हमारे भाग है लिखे. Let the script of my life, O Lord, be written by your hand. It doesn't matter whether it's pain or pleasure, whether it's victory or loss, whether it's honor or dishonor. It doesn't matter, Swami, but may it be written by your hands. And I did not realize the significance of what he was saying at that point of time. And immediately after that, Swami got up and said, very good, very good, very good. And then he gets up right in front of this chair and he materializes Vibhuti. And now it was a smiling Swami singing along with me, very jovial, but then a very serious expression on his face as though he was doing something very important, very deliberate. He took this Vibhuti and says, open your mouth. And then Swami is dropping the Vibhuti. Now I'm telling you the clarity of the dream. It was so clear that I could see the Vibhuti particles falling. Are you able to? It's goosebumps. If you see, I can see the Vibhuti falling. So clearly that in that Vibhuti, I also saw that it was mixed with some golden crystals. I don't know what he fed me. But there was something which he dropped. I could see golden crystals mixed with the Vibhuti. It landed on my tongue. And I'll tell you now the most amazing part of this entire thing, which only the Lord can do. At that point, the dream ended. At that point, the dream ended, and I woke up. I realized it's a dream. And immediately, my wife, is there, and I tell her, I saw Swami. This is after my student period. I saw Swami. And it is Brahma Muhurtam time, early in the morning, your typical Suprabhatam time. And I still remember Swami dropped the Vibhuti into my mouth. When it landed on my tongue, the Vibhuti was sweet. And dear brothers and sisters, the unbelievable thing is, even after I woke up for 10-15 seconds, the sweetness was lingering on my tongue, but there was no Vibhuti. It was as though that line between Jagra and Swapna had actually been completely taken off. For the one who is beyond Jagra, Swapna, Shushupti, what is Jagra, what is Swapna? The one who says everything is dream, everything is dream, everything is dream. What is Jagra, Swapna, Shushupti for that Lord? So he just drops this and that sweetness still lingering. Dear brothers and sisters, I did not understand the significance of it at that point of time. But you know what would happen? Immediately after that, I went through the most troubling period at work. While I'll not get into the details, troubling period at work. And every time I went through the troubling period, it was exactly before this line would come back to my mind. Tu chahe to hame mare, tu chahe to hame rakhe, tere hi haath se sai, hamare bhag hai likhe. This song would materialize in my life. Every time before, I would have a troubled time. In fact, I'll tell you honestly, sometimes, many times, to be honest, I've had situations, the moment I hear this song, I would say, oh my God, trouble is going to start. Trouble is going to start. It would come in the most, improbable ways. I go to Prashanti Nilayam for 1st of January for Prema Bandham. I go for my registration. A brother who never sings, out of tune, sings this song. And I asked him, why you sing this song, brother, of all songs? He said, I felt like singing. I said, no, he's at work. Immediately trouble started, the next batch. This bhajan was kept miraculously waiting for me in Vrindavan. They were trying to teach this bhajan a lot of days to students. Didn't happen. It was getting postponed for some reason. Suddenly, I landed up in Vrindavan for some work in the institute, in the university there. And a brother looks at me and says, oh, you've come. I said, what do you mean by, oh, you've come? I said, we've got a surprise for you. What is the surprise? They were teaching this song that day. In fact, they made me teach that song. Very sweetly, what they've done is they reversed the order also. Tu chahe to hame mare came after the first song. Trouble after that again. And at that point of time, I used to be very worried when I listened to a song. Even my wife also would say, hey, oh, that song came again, huh? But then I was speaking to a member in a Samiti. I was part of a conversation where he said something very beautiful which changed the entire insight that I had from this. This devotee was in Africa and he had noticed a very interesting pattern. He had noticed that till you come to the Swami, everything is fine in your life. The moment you come into the Swami, things go south. All troubles come, problems come. Does this sound familiar? So a lot of people would say, this sounds familiar. Everything was okay. Till then. Now, this brother had observed this pattern with Sai devotees. He was contemplating on whether he should take membership of the Sai organization, but this was a problem. He saw this red flag. So he walked up to an elder and said, "Sir, I actually want to join Sri Sathya Sai Seva organization, but there is a problem. I find that whoever takes a membership, after that, troubles come into their life. So I'm actually worried." And that brother who listens to this smiles at him and says, "Dear brother, I think you're looking at it all wrong." And listen to this very carefully, brothers. Look at this beautiful explanation inspired by the Lord. That brother says, "It is not because Swami has come into your life that troubles have come. It is not because Swami has come into your life that troubles have come. It is because troubles are going to come into your life that Swami is coming." You understand this? It is when the mother, the baby is sick, that's when the mother's presence is to be felt. He's always there. But his felt presence is required at that point of time. It is like a pilot telling you, we're going to go through turbulence, but don't worry, I'm there. And then I understood the meaning of the song. He's actually telling, don't worry, you're going to go through a patch, but don't worry. No, I'm just telling you to put your seat belts. What is that seat belt? When dark clouds fill your skies, hiding sunshine from your eyes, say his name, see his form, hold on. Hold on, Sai Ram. When things are getting rough and you feel enough's enough, say his name, see his form, hold on. Hold on, Sai Ram. When life seems so unfair and no one seems to care, say his name, see his form, hold on. Hold on, Sai Ram. That seemed to be the message. Tu chahe to hame mare, tu chahe to hame rakhe. But Swami, let me remember pain or pleasure, Swami. Let me remember that it is your script. It is prasadam. And then I realized he was answering my prayer. Once after I had spoken, I had fallen at his feet. That's what happens now when you touch the Lord. All your desires go away. What can you ask? Because when you touch him, you feel complete. Narada describes that state as Sampurna Kama, not Nishkama. Nishkama is desireless. Sampurna Kama is, I've had a heavy meal. I don't want anymore. I can't take it. That's the state when you touch the Lord. You don't give up desires. Desires give you up. Like the leaves fall from the tree in autumn, they give you up. That's the state when you touch the Lord. And at Swami's lotus feet, the only thing I could ask is, I said, Swami, let us be always devoted to you, Swami. And what is Swami's definition of devotion? Brothers, you go to that room. It's written there. Swami writes. He says, I have my definition of devotion. My definition of devotion means my devotee, pain or pleasure, up or down, victory or loss, honor or dishonor. All of that, my devotee will look at it with samadrishti. And he says samadrishti is shubha drishti. He says that is prasada buddhi. Tu chahe to hame mare, tu chahe to hame rakhe, tere hi haath se sai, hamare bhag lehe likhe. These words, I place everything that I've said at Bhagawan's lotus feet. It belongs to him. Dear brothers and sisters, remember the touch of the one in the play of the many. I pray to Swami that the speaker be forgotten. The speaker is irrelevant. What be remembered is only this fascinating Lord, this wonderful Lord, this beautiful Lord, the Lord who is a changing rose. Sometimes he looks dark, sometimes he looks fair, sometimes he looks soft, sometimes he looks hard, sometimes he looks short, sometimes he looks tall, sometimes he is the father, sometimes he is the mother. But whatever he is ours. And let me offer everything at Swami's lotus feet by singing the glory of his beauty. Sai Baba, Sakala Bhuvan ke Data. Sai Baba, Sai Baba, सकल भुवन के दाता। साई बाबा सकल भुवन के दाता। रूप मनोहर कमलाकांता। युगावतार साई बाबा दया करो साई बाबा। युगावतार साई बाबा दया करो साई बाबा। शिरडी परती हृदय निवासी। प्रशांति सुंदर साई। मेरे प्रशांति सुंदर साई। साई बाबा सकल भुवन के दाता। हे प्रशांति सुंदर साई। हे प्रशांति सुंदर साई। जय साई राम।